Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. We begin this episode on a somber note to pay our respects to Anant Rangaswami, who passed away on the 24th of May 2022. Anant served as the editor of Melt in addition to advising and consulting Team Curious. One of the country's foremost minds on advertising and marketing, Anant will be deeply missed by all of us here at Melt and Curious. One of Anant's final projects was helping adman Piyush Pandey pen his second book, Open House. The book was formally launched at a private event in Mumbai earlier this week, and Melt and I were invited to cover a chat between Piyush Pandey, author and Chairman Global Creative Ogilvy, and Rajiv Bajaj, Managing Director, Bajaj Auto. Anand's presence was sincerely missed at an event that brought together the country's brightest ad and marketing minds. Here are some highlights of the conversation. So, let's get ready to melt with Piyush Pandey and Rajiv Bajaj.
We're at the launch of Open House, Piyush's second book. Welcome, one and all. First question to Rajiv. In your foreword, you say every client gets the advertising they deserve. So, does every agency also get the clients they deserve?
See, I said that because I heard Piyush ji saying this, that every client gets the advertising that he deserves. At that time, I was very young. I mean, I'm still very young.
Very shockingly.
I was even younger that time. So I didn't have the courage to ask him what he meant by that. But I assumed what he meant was that your advertising is supposed to be a reflection of your product or your strategy, mirror your strategy. And to that extent, you get the advertising you deserve. Now, as far as agencies are concerned, it is for him to say, but I mean, he has a right to say whether he is going to have a certain client or not. So I think...
So Piyush, did you get the client you deserve?
I've been very fortunate all my life that I got a lot of clients that I don't know if we deserved them, but we were very, very honored to work with them. And very fact that there are people out here with 20, 30, 40, 50 years of relationship, and we go along, and the relationship has been managed by every generation on both sides beautifully, and that works. And if there are clients who throw us out, then maybe we didn't deserve them.
Piyush, you dedicate this book to your mentor, Suresh Malik. Now, Rajiv is very young and he may not remember Suresh Malik. So for the benefit of Rajiv and people of Rajiv's age, can you tell us a little bit about why you venerate Suresh Malik? He's almost a godlike figure in your book.
Yeah, Suresh Malik is my predecessor as the creative head of Ogilvy. And it was quite a coincidence. When I came to join Ogilvy 82, that's when he shifted also from Calcutta to take over and be the national creative director of Ogilvy. Suresh gave me the opportunity. Those were changing times. He used to take me to shoots. I was not in creative, I was in client servicing. But he saw something in me that I did not see. And in 86, 87, he and the managing director, late Mani Iyer, took me to the Ritz bar and gave me a couple of vodkas.
Ah, okay. And now that explains it.
And said, would you like to shift from client servicing and be copy chief Indian languages? And I said, what does that mean? There are only Indian languages in this country. They said, no, TV has gone to people's homes. Most writers are writing in English. It's being translated. We want original stuff to come out. So I was also very young that time, Rajiv. And I was, I think, over courageous. So I asked them a question. That this branding of Indian, copy cheap Indian languages, does it kind of puts me into a bucket where I can never be the national creative director of this company? This was a big question for a young man. They said no. I said, then I'm on. The rest is history. I am Suresh Malik's creation.
So most Sureshs are like that. They're very legendary people.
One was Prasanna, one is Venkat.
Piyush, in your book, specifically page 5, you say when you joined advertising in 82, it used to be the business of big creative ideas. But today with things like big data, machine learning, algorithms, and God knows what else, what is advertising all about?
Advertising is communication. Big data you can have and keep it at home. and study it. All the research you can have and keep it at home, study it. All the algorithms, you can have it in your science labs. But you need an idea. You need an idea. Somebody came up with the idea of algorithms. Somebody came up with the idea of big data. To do what? To reach you. To find out what's your behavior. I think ideas read between the lines. Data will give you current behavior. Good ideas will seek answers which are under the skin. And that's what the differentiation is between mediocre and great communication. So yes, we need it all. But how we use them is up to us.
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
Okay. There's a famous story about the Ogilvy team pitching for the Bajaj Pulsar account. And I'll just quickly summarize the story before I ask the question.
That's his story.
So the Ogilvy team went with a presentation and pitch ideas and everything else to Rajiv's office. Piyush randomly decided midway that he got a brainwave and kept all the work in the dicky of the car. He went up to Rajiv's office and said, "We have a lot of work. I won't show it to you. I want to pitch you 2 words for your new bike." And those 2 words were definitely male. Right? Because in Hindi, bike was female, scooter is male. So Piyush had lots of thinking behind it. But Rajiv, you risked the future of your product on those 2 words, really?
First, I was given this long spiel on how Ogilvy is a very process-oriented,
Correct.
creative.
Very process-oriented. We have Excel sheets and all.
And then in the process of coming to Pune, he dumped all the work that they had done.
Correct.
And randomly brought up this definitely male concept.
Yeah.
But more seriously, advertising is a very seductive thing. And especially when you have somebody like Piyush in the room, it becomes very difficult to be objective about judging what is put before you. So fortunately, I had a very good marketing mentor in Jack Trout, who fundamentally taught me that keep 4 things in mind. If it checks 4 boxes, then it's good, then it's sound. First, is it relevant to the context, to the consumer? 2, is it differentiated? That's most important, because if it's not differentiated, it's not a brand, it's a commodity. 3, is the differentiation credible? And 4thly, is it being communicated dramatically in a charming, in an endearing fashion? So if it checks all these 4 boxes, it's good. And finally, he said the most important metric to judge whether it will be effective is that your advertising you should believe that it will make your competitor uncomfortable. So somewhere, I guess, for Hero at that time, they were making this piddly little 100cc bike. And by their own admission, it was fill it, shut it, and forget it. And this was definitely male. So obviously, it's going to make them uncomfortable. So I thought, theek hai, chalega.
It's not that simple. Rajiv is not that stupid that though words he would buy a campaign. I was not so stupid to give him 2 words. I walked in and I shared with him where the thought came from. I said, अपने country में यार अजीब, the inanimate objects have a gender. हम बोलते हैं कुर्सी रखी है, मुड्डा रखा है. When did the मुड्डा become male? And I said, देखो कितनी strange बातें हमारी country में कहते हैं स्कूटर चलता है, मोटरसाइकिल चलती है. And your product, I saw it, and it's definitely male. So I think, Rajiv, this is my suggestion to you. That's how it happened.
All right. But we still are not done. So Rajiv, forget about the advertising for a moment. In a market dominated by the 100cc, fill it, shut it, forget it, and step-through scooters, mostly 100cc, like you said, piddly bikes, you had the guts to launch a 150, 180cc bike. What gave you the confidence that somebody would even buy it at all in the first place?
Technology saturated in this industry 100 years ago. Things have moved forward only incrementally. This means everybody's technology and quality is like everybody else's. You will see car advertising where Maruti will say 12 kilometers a liter and somebody else will say 12.4 kilometers a liter. This is the kind of work ad agencies do nowadays, unfortunately. What this is telling us, therefore, is that we compete more on perception than reality. Because in reality, everybody's product is like everybody else's product. So now, if you cut back to Bajaj, there's two kinds of motorcycles at that time, basically. There was a two-stroke motorcycle and a four-stroke motorcycle. TVS were first with the two-stroke, Hero was first with the four-stroke. We came many years later. So how do you come late to market and create a new perception? It is very, very difficult. Fortunately, one of the aphorisms I believe in is nothing exists without its opposite. If there is room in the world for a mileage motorcycle, a small motorcycle, automatically it means there is room in the world for a big, powerful, fun motorcycle, and it is so in life also. That's why we must all be tolerant in this country of ours, because if there is a view, one must respect that there is a opposite view as well. And so we said to ourselves, great, somebody's made the little motorcycle, we'll make the definitely male motorcycle. And we started with that thought. There was no market research, consumer groups, focus groups, none of that stuff.
Big data also.
Haji? No big data.
Only big
Small
bike.
data, microscopic data.
And big bike.
So it is with
Big
that,
bike.
It is with that conviction that we started off.
Rajiv, you sell two-wheelers in 70 countries today. Do you consider Bajaj to be a global brand?
Well, Bajaj is a Indian brand, first of all, for sure. When we set out on our international journey about 15 years ago, 15 years back, Bajaj did not export anything virtually. Today, we export more than half of what we make. We said to ourselves at that time, what's our goal? Our goal was not to be the biggest or the best, because what is the best? It's hard to say. Our goal was to be the most versatile motorcycle maker. We are a motorcycle maker that is represented from Nigeria to the United States. I don't know any other motorcycle maker that is so versatile that its back end is operationally efficient to produce a $400 motorcycle for Nigeria, and at the same time, a 6,000 euro motorcycle for export to Europe, to Japan, to the US, out of the same kitchen. It's like this hotel producing vada pav and souffle out of the same kitchen at two different prices. It doesn't happen so easily. So by that measure, I would say that we have demonstrated some global capability by being very versatile. Finally, when it comes to brand, I choose to answer it like this because this was a ongoing, let me say politely, discussion between my father and me for a long time.
Politely, yeah.
That Bajaj is a B2B brand. See, I work for Bajaj. This is my work t-shirt. So people work for Bajaj, people are suppliers to Bajaj, people are dealers of Bajaj, people advertise for Bajaj. But the customer doesn't come into my dealership and say, hey, give me a Bajaj. It's not a B2C brand. In that sense, Bajaj is not a global B2C brand to my mind at least. Pulsar is the brand, Avenger is the brand, KTM is the brand, Dominar is the brand. So I think this distinction is very, very important for us when we go about our strategy.
Piyush, in your book, you talk about global brands like Apple and Nike that take vision and time and conviction to build. Many CEOs today have short-term results, this quarter, this half, this year. Do you think this is the reason why we don't have that many Indian global brands? Short-term results, quarterly pressure?
That's not really true. The CEOs are not stupid. It's just that either you have a product that travels. The entire challenge is to have a product that travels. If they have a product that travels, which has the potential of being global, I'm sure they'll find the money to do that. Till that time comes, yes, they think quarter to quarter because there are shareholders, but there are some smarter people who say that, yes, I will need the quarter to quarter, but that's not my goal. My goal is bigger, far more scary, and I'll chase that. It all depends. I think circumstances, we can't generalize about clients everywhere. There are clients who don't talk to me about that quarter because I'm not the right person to talk about. They talk to me about how can we make magic with the brand. They must be talking quarterly sales with their sales people, with their marketing people. They know who has to be spoken to in what language.
Piyush, in your book, you describe yourself as the playing captain of Ogilvy. For those of you who don't know, very young people, Piyush was a Ranji Trophy cricketer. You describe yourself as the playing captain at Ogilvy. But here's the problem. Not all players make great captains. Sachin had to give up captaincy. More recently, Ravindra Jadeja, after 3 matches, had to give up captaincy. How do you recognize that your employee who's a player, somebody in your team, has the makings of a great captain?
I'll first answer that my experience has been with cricket. But it's the same analogy if I was a footballer. Any team game and advertising is a team game. We have no factories, we don't have products, we just have people. Now coming to the captain bit, captains emerge. Captains are not appointed on because of your seniority. Captains emerge. If you have the ability to lead people and people want to be led by you, you become a captain. Playing captain means, very simply, that if you are not a playing captain, you don't need to demonstrate. I believe that playing captains need to demonstrate. They have to roll up their sleeves and play along with the team. When the team is down, they should come out and help the team win. When the team is playing well, he must step back and watch the game and enjoy it. Because if you do not perform, you will not be in the team. If you are not in the team, you won't be the captain. As simple as that.
Rajiv, every business book, every business guru says roughly one version of what I'm about to say. They say surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Everybody says this, but every CEO or every leader seems to be insecure. Nobody actually does this. How do you deal with this problem if it occurs in your business?
See, I'll answer it a little differently. I heard Warren Buffett say once, work for a company that even an idiot can run, because one day an idiot will. तो ऐसी तो कोई company है ही नहीं जहाँ पे some idiot is not running it. At some point it happens. Now this had me very worried because my grandfather was a great entrepreneur. My father was a great businessman. So the odds were really against me.
Third generation problem we also have.
Fortunately, Mr. Trout solved my problem again. He told me that a story about a client of his who finished his story by saying that I'm just an average jockey on one hell of a horse. I think CEOs must realize that they are very average actually. So we have to understand that circumstances are much bigger than us. Luck plays a big role. The people you have around you, obviously play a huge role. And somewhere, unless that sense of understanding, humility, and gratitude is there, you're always going to be an and then eventually, fortunately, in an open market, the market will teach you. The University of Life will teach you. And in terms of valuing people, I would only say this. I heard, I believe Jeff Bezos said this when he was in a panel like this. And CEOs were asked what they look for in people that they like to work with, who they would consider as champions or captains or what have you. And while everybody talked of mission and vision and passion and integrity and commitment and stuff like that, I believe he said just this: I like the people who can solve the problems. And I tell you, in the broadest sense of the word, that is so important, because every day we go out there to solve a problem, and often the solution is not in one place or the other, but in the interfaces. And that's why they say leaders are those who make the whole bigger than the sum of the parts, because they work not just on the parts, but also on the interaction between the parts. So when we are working between departments and functions and companies and interfaces with stakeholders, that's what has to come together. So to me, that is an important quality in people who are going to demonstrate leadership eventually.
Piyush, Rajiv just spoke about solving problems. Do agencies have the ability to solve a client's problem if there's no media budget attached? Maybe there's no advertising attached, but there is a communication problem. There is some sort of integral problem with the organization.
I think ideally they should. If they consider themselves to be partners, then the problem should give them as many sleepless nights as it does the client. And that is the gist of a partnership. Sometimes you may not have money. Sometimes you might say that let's do something to communicate in the shop. Sometimes we might say something else. But to ever think that you are an agency and he is a client is perhaps the biggest mistake. It's very transactional. You are into a partnership. You must feel the pain and you must feel the gain in equal measures.
All right, let's talk about bosses. Piyush, you had legendary bosses. You've spoken about Suresh Malik, you've spoken about Mani Iyer, and many others in your book. Rajiv, you had your father, who was a pretty legendary man himself as a boss. Both of you speak fairly highly of your bosses. For people who don't work with legendary or fantastic bosses, how do they get on with their career? What do they do? How do you manage?
So as you said, I had a great boss, so I have not experienced this problem.
Correct. But what if you didn't?
If there's a fundamental moral, legal issue, then that's a different issue. Now we're talking just work-related.
Management style, work-related, promoting talent, all of those things.
So this becomes particularly a problem when there is transition, when the market is shifting and there is transition. Yeah. And in the end, I can just tell you from my experience that you cannot, people's patterns don't change. If you think the boss is going to change and come around to your way of thinking or vice versa, that's not going to happen. I think all you can do is focus on your work and make your work speak for itself. I think we did that in our own small way, starting with the Pulsar, and then we developed so many other products after that, on the back of which we developed a really world-class R&D now. We have 1,400 people there. We set up a new plant to demonstrate that, at that time, 20 years ago, automation and robotics can happen in India and not just in Japan. We took that further into dealerships to say we can specialize at dealerships and treat customers differently depending on whether you're an auto rickshaw customer or a Pulsar customer, for example, and that we can indeed export, etc. So I think the only way you can make your case, make your point, is through your work. Your work has to speak for itself. I don't know any other way that you can, deal with a boss with whom you have a difference of alignment, let's say, at the workplace.
That's all we have on this episode of Melt. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. And if you'd like to follow me, it's @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye, stay safe, and thanks for watching.